So if you go to the Sephora website, you're going to see there's almost 400 cologne options for men. Now, if you walk into one of their physical stores, there'll be a lot less options. Still, you'll have, depending on the location, about 100 different colognes to choose from. Now, to us frag heads, this is a great thing. We love choice, but to the average guy, the number of choices here can be overwhelming. So the first step in making sense of all of these choices is to understand that the majority of these fragrances are going to fall into one of two categories: your summer, your hot weather, your lighter fragrances, and then you are going to have your heavier, deeper, richer, winter-like fragrances. And I know so many of you frag heads out there are saying, Antonio, you can't just break the entire industry into two categories. I get that, but for today's video, I'm going to keep it really simple, because when it comes to certain categories like woods or chypre or other maybe oriental spicy fragrances, those for the most part designers don't touch. There are exceptions, and I will talk about those. So using that information, I'm going to go through each of the common houses you're going to find at Sephora and my top 2 picks, going with most likely a light fragrance and going with a little bit of a heavier one. Now, the first fragrance house I want to talk about today, who consistently puts out amazing products, is the house of Dior. The 2 fragrances I'm holding, 2 of their best sellers over the last 30 years. Since 1988, Dior Fahrenheit, this fragrance has been a go-to for men. Some guys feel it's a bit dated. I still think it's incredibly powerful. Yes, it's a bit watered down from what it used to be, but gasoline mixed in with grass and a leather jacket, that is this fragrance. And for a rock star who wants to stand out, a solid pick. Right over here, since 2015, we've got Dior Sauvage. This thing, because of the ambroxan and just it is a crowd pleaser. The ladies love this. This, when it hit the market, they put a big marketing campaign behind it, and this fragrance has since then continued to be one of the top selling fragrances in the world. That being said, if you forced me to choose one Dior fragrance, it would be Dior Homme. This one is versatile, it's fresh, it's clean with a bit of wood. It just smells like class in a bottle. And if you get your nose on Dior Homme and it's a little bit too heavy, check out the cologne. It's going to have more of the citrus note in it. It's got good longevity. If it's hot, if it's over 35 degrees Celsius, over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, check out Dior Homme cologne. Now, the second fragrance I would choose from the Dior Homme line, if you wanted something dark, rich, and relatively new, check out the new Dior Sauvage Elixir. Manly, dark, great projection. Not something you want to wear in hot weather, but out on a hot day, yeah, this is a fragrance that's going to get you compliments, and you've got to have cojones to wear. Now, the next fragrance house I want to talk about is Mont Blanc. And you're going to find a lot of frag heads lift their noses up to Mont Blanc because, yeah, they make what perceived to be as clones. They basically see something that's working maybe in the niche arena, and they're like, hey, we're going to replicate it because we can sell a lot of it. And that's probably what they do. And hey, do you really care? Because if you can get a fragrance that smells amazing and you get compliments, unless you're really into fragrances, I get it. The majority of people just want something that smells good. Now, this fragrance right here, Mont Blanc Legend, is a solid pick. If you liked Abercrombie & Fitch's Fierce, you are going to love this one. It's basically a woody musk that gets compliments and has decent longevity. That being said, Mont Blanc Explorer, which came out about 4 years ago, is now probably their best seller because it is a ripoff of Creed Aventus. And in case you've never heard of Creed Aventus, this is a very expensive $500 niche fragrance that you're able to get a clone of for, about $100. That being said, if I were to choose one fragrance from the house of Mont Blanc, it would actually be their Legend Eau de Parfum. This is the newer fragrance that just came out, and it's very similar to the Eau de Toilette Legend, except it's stronger, has more projection, and it's a better copy of the original Abercrombie & Fitch Fierce. Now, some of you guys watching this video may think it's sponsored by Sephora. That's not the case. I'm actually getting no money from them. And the majority of the fragrances in my collection, not over 90%, I purchased with my own money. I'm making this video because I was in Sephora the other day and I heard 2 guys simply trying to make sense of all the different fragrance options in there. And I thought, you know what? I should actually create a video that makes it simple for guys to be able to go in there and make the perfect choice for them. That being said, the majority of the fragrances that I've bought in my collection, I have bought at discounters. And I'm happy to say, gents, I've got a deal for you. Down in the description of today's video, I'm linking over to one of those discounters with the best deals on the internet. I have already purchased from them, and I know that you guys can trust them to be able to get you quality fragrances that aren't, counterfeit, are the real thing. And that way you can smell better and get some of the options, some of the fragrances I'm talking about in this video at a better price than you're going to find at Sephora. The next fragrance house on my list, and one of my personal favorites, Tom Ford. When it comes to rich, heavy, deep, beautiful fragrances that are complex and relatively expensive, you're going to find that this house feels that niche. The majority of the fragrances in their collection expect to be challenged. And that's why a lot of people just getting into fragrances don't grab Tom Ford to start, because most of his fragrances are going to be ones that, a lot of guys just aren't going to have the confidence to pull off. That being said, if you're up for a unisex fragrance, one that's absolutely beautiful, check out Black Orchid. Or if you want something deep, rich, heavy that screams for attention, check out Tobacco Vanille. Now, some of his fragrances have become iconic, and if you want to get your first oud fragrance, definitely check out Oud Wood. It doesn't have a whole lot of oud, but it is a great intro to that category. Or if you want something with a bit of leather, check out the Ombre Leather. And I really do like the new Parfum. I think it's even smoother than the original EDP. But if you were to force me to choose one Tom Ford fragrance that I would recommend for other men if they want to get their first Tom Ford that's deep, rich, I would highly recommend you check out Noir Extreme. Now, this one right here is the Eau de Parfum, and if you look around, you can find some really good deals on this, but you're also going to see the Parfum out there. I own both of them and really can't smell that much of a difference. If you're thinking you're going to get more for paying more, I would advise you to start with the EDP if you've got that option. That being said, as a guy that owns both and is really big into Tom Ford fragrances, I'm happy I have both. Now, what about a fresh, clean, light fragrance from Tom Ford? So the two main options you're going to see when you walk into Sephora are going to be Costa Azzura and Beau de Jour. Now, personally, I love Beau de Jour. It's masculine, it's got a barbershop type scent to it, but for the majority of guys out there, I think they're really going to be drawn more to Costa Azzura, and that's why I would recommend this one. Now, when you're in Sephora, you're probably going to see two options of this to make it a little bit more confusing. You've got the Parfum and you've got the EDP. Go with the EDP. The Parfum is supposedly a little bit stronger, but I haven't been able to see a difference. And again, I've got both of them. Now, the next house we're going to talk about, one of the most prestigious on this list, is Yves Saint Laurent. That being said, I don't know what it is about these French houses, but they make it ultra confusing for the average guy to be able to go in there and select a fragrance. I mean, it may have been obvious to most people, but I'm embarrassed to say I did not actually know what the big difference was between L'Homme and La Nuit L'Homme. I mean, yeah, I could smell the difference. This was an aromatic, warm, spicy with a bit of citrus versus the La Nuit, which was a bit sweeter of an aromatic. But depending on what Sephora you walk into, you are going to see tons of flankers of both of these. And the only way to tell the difference between the two lines, which now is obvious to me, is actually the L'Homme is going to have the silver caps and the La Nuit is going to have the black caps. Makes sense, right? That being said, if you're a newbie, if you want to get into Yves Saint Laurent fragrances and you don't own a whole lot of fragrances and you don't want to be too confused, then check out their Y line. Now, the Y line started off simple enough. We had an EDT and we had an EDP, and it made sense because the EDP was a little bit darker and it was heavier and stronger. But because those fragrances were selling so well and so many people were complaining about the eau de toilette not being intense enough, guess what? They came out with an EDT Intense. I'm not sure if they actually listened to people or they realized they had kind of put out a dud, and well, this one actually is pretty darn good. Again, they went with the same bottle, and they do make it confusing because this one says EDP on the bottom, but I know it is the EDP Intense, which, yes, to not confuse you, there are the original EDT and EDP, and then there's the EDT and EDP Intense versions. And quick correction, yes, I know this is the Y Live Eau de Toilette, not technically the Y Eau de Toilette. That being said, if I had to choose two, what I like about the Y line is that it is diverged enough that we have two fragrances in this line that are very different from each other and I think complement each other. So if you really don't like deep, rich, heavy fragrances, but you want one that, you know, you can wear during the winter, but still has a bit of a fresh vibe to it with a bit of amber, then check out the Le Parfum by Yves Saint Laurent's Y collection. Now, on the opposite side, we've got the Y Eau Fraiche. And if you're familiar with the different types of fragrances, Eau Fraiche, Eau de Toilette, Eau de Parfum, you'll know that in general, the concentration of the oil is going to be less in this fragrance, but still I find that it's got good longevity. And what I love is that strong citrus note, perfect for hot weather. So this combination I see great for a guy down in South Texas, in Southern California, down in Florida, that, yeah, it just never gets that cold. So you want, you know, something for your warm winter and you want something for extremely hot weather. Boom, this combination right here would be perfect. Next up, let's talk about the House of Paco Rabanne. So if you want a bottle that screams for attention, this is going to be the house that you want to check out. A lot of people consider this stuff to be tacky. I think that it's a great marketing ploy because people are talking about it. And really, you know, in a crowded market, they're doing a decent job. The only Big complaint, which I will agree with. The Invictus line for me just smells a bit too synthetic. Not for everybody. And that's what I love about you being able to walk into a Sephora. You can actually try these. And if you're going to test a fragrance, by the way, spray it on one wrist, one spray, and that's it. And smell it throughout the day. You can do a different fragrance on another wrist, but don't do more than 2. A lot of people think that they can walk into a store and try like 10 different fragrances. Believe me, you will be nose blind by fragrance number 2. And it doesn't help. It doesn't reset your nose by smelling coffee beans. A lot of people, they have those laying around. That is a complete false. It just doesn't happen. Instead, you need to be able to step out of the store, get fresh air for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then you could go in for another round. But even the best noses in the world need time to be able to recover. That being said, that Invictus Victory Elixir is a beautiful new fragrance, but it is going to be heavier, deeper, richer. And I do find that in general, Paco Rabanne fragrances seem to lean in that direction. Another honorable mention is going to be Paco Rabanne's Phantom. Again, a tacky bottle for most people, but the juice is solid. What I really liked about this, it was unique, but not over the top. And if you get your nose on this and you like it, you like the mix of the citrus with the darkness, I think it's a really unique fragrance. Maybe not great for summer, but solid for 3 seasons around cooler weather. But no, the fragrance I would recommend from the Paco Rabanne line is their classic 1 million. Sweet, syrupy, for some people over the top, but for the men that love Paco Rabanne's 1 million, the women love it as well. This will get you compliments. I've got Privé, which I have had women stop me and ask me what I'm wearing. There's also, you're going to find Lucky out there. So any of the flankers in this line are actually really good, but the original, don't sleep on it. It is still the king of the Paco Rabanne line, in my opinion. So the next fragrance house on this list, one of the best deals out there for the longevity, for the projection, and for the overall quality, for the money you're paying. Guys, check out the House of Versace. Now, the best-selling fragrance from the House of Versace is going to be Eros. And now there are 3 versions. They'll probably come out with an Elixir here any point, but you've got the original EDT, you've got an Eau de Parfum, and you now have a Parfum. Any of these are really good. They didn't diverge too much from the original Eau de Toilette, but I would recommend for most men starting off, if you smell this fragrance, you want to grab it, just grab the Eau de Toilette because you're going to be able to find great deals on it. If you're buying this as a blind buy, understand this is a strong vanilla clubbing fragrance that can be overpowering, but the ladies love it because it's so sweet, it's so intoxicating. That being said, this is a darker, richer fragrance, so you'll want to wear it in cooler weather. Now, you're also going to see Versace Eros in a red bottle. This is one of the flankers. It is flame. So we've talked about the word flanker. In case I haven't defined it, these are going to be variations of the original. This one is going to be a little bit richer, a little bit spicier. It's actually doesn't have much more projection. I do like the original better, but this one is a really cool, again, if you really love Versace Eros, you're getting tired of the same thing, then there's nothing wrong with having this one as well. That being said, don't sleep on Pour Homme or Dylan Blue. So if you're looking for a fragrance that will do everything, this may be the one fragrance you want to grab out of the Versace line. And again, you can pick this up at discounters, but if you walk into Sephora, get your nose on this. I didn't get into much about blue fragrances, and I will talk about the original blue fragrance here next, but this blue fragrance, actually, it suits so many different purposes. Blue fragrances in general are going to have kind of an ozonic smell to them. They're just something that they can work in hot weather, in cool weather. And for a lot of guys who just want to have one fragrance in their collection, a blue fragrance is a great option. That being said, for those of you guys in hot weather, you do want something with a bit more of a citrus note, something a bit lighter, airier. So check out the Pour Homme. The only thing I don't like about this fragrance is I wish it had longer longevity. But again, if you're out there sweating, you're going to find that the fragrance is going to project. So for a lot of guys, this one is perfect. And really quick, I do want to give a shout out to the Dreamer. I know so many of you guys love this fragrance. For me, it's just a bit too powdery, not a fragrance. You know, a little bit of a tobacco note in this one. I didn't like the combination, but I know a lot of guys love it. Again, what I love about these stores, you can go in, you can get your nose on it, put a little spray on the wrist, and see if it's something that's going to work for your skin chemistry. And really quick, before I talk about my fresh pick, I want to be clear, I would go with that EDT as one of my picks from the Versace line on that deep, rich side. And to complement it, I would go with Versace's Man Eau Fraiche. Now, when it comes to summer fragrances, it's hard to find a better fragrance than Man Eau Fraiche. Many are more expensive. Some of them have greater longevity. But when it comes to just a magical fragrance that works with a man's sweat when you're outside, and for most people just absolutely love this one. And for the price, because you can find this thing at discounters, highly recommended you add this to your collection. If you were to grab just one fragrance out of Sephora because you just need one that is going to work for, the summer, this would be the one I would recommend. All right, so after heaping all that praise on that last house, I do got to say that they could be challenged by Dolce & Gabbana. So this Italian brand does an excellent job with deep, rich, heavy fragrances paired with really light summer fragrances that are absolutely beautiful. So the only thing that makes this house confusing is how many flankers they are constantly shooting out. The most recent right here is going to be the Dolce & Gabbana Light Blue. You've got this summer vibes. It's an excellent fragrance. Actually gets back to the original, and I got that one right over here. That's going to be, so the Light Blue pour Homme. This one, the issue I had with the original, it's a magical scent, but it is way too weak. They did fix it though, and the one I recommend to most people when they're looking at this is going to be the Eau Intense, which is stronger. You can't always find this though in the store at Sephora. You can most likely buy it online. The one they're going to be pushing though is going to be this latest flanker, which is great. It doesn't have the same longevity as the Eau Intense, but it does have good longevity and it's a bit creamier. Now on the deeper, richer, more amber side, heavier side, you've got the One. And to this day, so many other deep, heavy, rich fragrances have come out, but Dolce & Gabbana, the One, is still such an easy recommend to a guy just starting his collection. And you're going to see they've got this one. It's an intense version, but it really isn't that intense. I would go with the original or the Eau de Parfum. The Eau de Parfum is going to have a black top, but most likely when you are shopping on Sephora, you're just going to find the original. That being said, again, if you look around, you can find better deals at discounters. Now, what are my thoughts on King? So I've talked about this before, but this fragrance was misnamed because when people think of a King, they think of a fragrance to rule them all. And then, versatility wise, this fragrance, you could argue both the Eau de Toilette and the Eau de Parfum. The Eau de Parfum, though, is going to have stronger, more projection, and people just, that's what it seems like in general they want online. They want to be able to buy a fragrance and for it to last all day. But if you're going to wear something during the summer, that is going to be a great crowd-pleasing fragrance for the office. The Eau de Toilette is fine, especially if you're able to get this for a deal at a discounter. But the Eau de Parfum is going to be a little bit spicier, stronger, and is going to project more. But it wouldn't be my top pick from this house. Now, before I reveal that top pick, let's talk about the ones that are right below it. I love the smell of grapefruit. So when they came out with both of these flankers of light blue, I loved it. Now, I don't know why they released them so close next to each other. That was a mistake, but you can go with Forever or you can go with Italian Love. I initially thought Italian Love was it didn't make sense why they released it right after Forever. So don't buy both. But if you're going to have to choose one, go with Italian Love. I think it's a little bit better, a little bit smoother. But no, if I had to choose one, and this one you can't always find at Sephora, but sometimes they've got it right there, it's going to be the Intenso. So the Intenso, what I like about this, it's going to be more aromatic. You can dress it up, you can dress it down. It's going to be a very versatile fragrance. That being said, Dolce Gabbana as a house, so many great selections here. This is a house that, again, you can, for not a whole lot of money, get amazing fragrances. So if you didn't want something that could do everything, then I would definitely go with the light blue Eau Intense, and maybe with Dolce & Gabbana's the One. That combination there would be awesome as well. Next up, let's talk about Carolina Herrera and their Bad Boy line. They've got some older fragrances, which are awesome, but I'm going to talk about the ones that they're pushing right now in Sephora. So the Bad Boy, it looks like a lightning bolt. Again, a lot of people think the bottle's tacky, but the juice is solid. Maybe not the Eau de Parfum. I didn't really think that much of the Eau de Toilette. The original is really good. That being said, what I love about this line is that they've progressively gotten better with the new releases. So here we have Bad Boy Extreme. This one, they took the original, they made it more extreme, stronger, more projection. I really like this one. Dark, rich, deep. This is going to be more that winter scent. And then the Cobalt. This one, perfect for the summer. It's got a plum note, really unique. At the same time, not anything that a guy can't pull off. So it's going to be a little bit of sweetness mixed in there. A great summer scent. If you were just to have these two fragrances from the house of Carolina Herrera, you could be covered for the full year. Now, what if you want a fragrance that feels more niche quality? Something that is going to be heavier, deeper, richer, a bit of spice? Then check out Viktor & Rolf's Spicebomb. Now, when you go into Sephora, you're going to see that there are tons of flankers of the original Spicebomb, but the original is still, in my opinion, one of the best options out there. You can go for the extreme version, which I have, and I do understand that it is going to be stronger, a little bit deeper, richer vanilla, but I still love the original. Now, some people are going to argue the night vision version of Spicebomb, and I've got both the Eau de Toilette and the Eau de Parfum, was their equivalent, was their idea of a fresher, greener fragrance. But for me, yeah, you've got apple notes in this and it's a bit sweeter, but it still is a heavy, powerful fragrance that I wouldn't recommend for most men in the summertime. And the infrared, which we're going to see is the flanker with the red, and I know they just came out with a new Eau de Parfum that's going to be stronger, very similar to the original Eau de Toilette, which I have here. This one is going to have more of a spicy, a little bit more of a cinnamon note in it, and that's why I think this one is perfect for the winter. All that being said, if you're relatively new to fragrances, I'm not going to recommend starting off with Spicebomb, but if you've already got 4 to 5 in your collection, you want something different for the majority of fragrances out there, check them out. Now, this next house, I admit, I don't give a lot of love because I don't find them really inspiring, and I think a lot of people just buy the fragrances because they're buying into the brand, and that is Ralph Lauren. Their Polo Red is actually a sweet, decent, solid fragrance, and my nephew wears it. And, you know, because I gave him the fragrances, but I just felt, you know, with Polo Black, it's so uninspiring, and I really wish they would do something different. And you could also argue they're resting on their laurels. The original Polo Green came out in the 1970s, and this thing was a powerhouse. Still is, to a degree, a powerhouse. They've really had to cut back on things like oak moss. It's now illegal to put that, or they don't want to irritate people's skin. So I understand why they don't put this in there, but it really did affect the longevity. That being said, it is still a solid fragrance and probably the best in the Ralph Lauren collection. And if I had to recommend a heavy, deep, rich fragrance from this house, I would still recommend the original Polo Green. Some guys, again, are going to think it's dated, and do not confuse it with the Polo Green Intense. Totally different fragrance. And that's where, you know, this house drives me crazy. You know, don't confuse your customers because they really want to be able to, people thought it would be like this one, except more intense, and it wasn't. Now, one thing I will give Polo is they really make it easy to be able to differentiate between the bottles. They go with the simple colors, the design of the bottle is pretty much the same, but the blue line, again, not very inspiring, at least when they started. That being said, I will say the blue line has gotten better. Choose the Eau de Parfum or the Parfum. Both of these are better than the original blue. That being said, I understand where this brand is at. They really want to make this a safe fragrance that, you know, would be a great gift to give. And if you're going to give one of these, something that's incredibly versatile, you can dress it up, you can dress it down, you can wear it in warm weather, in cooler weather, I would check out the Ralph's Club. You can go with the Parfum, which is going to be a little bit deeper, richer, heavier, which a lot of guys want, but maybe too heavier for the summer, or check out the Eau de Parfum. That one probably better for the summer, but not going to have the same longevity, which, as we know, many people, they feel like every fragrance has to have huge beast mode performance, which it doesn't, in my opinion. Next up, let's talk about the house of Valentino. This house doesn't get a lot of recognition, I think, here in the United States, at least from the average guy. And part of that may be that it seems they hide them at Sephora. You find these mostly in the women's section, and when you do find them in the men's section, all the bottles pretty much look the same. Notice that reoccurring theme here? Guys, come on, marketing departments of these fragrance companies, get it together. But when it comes to putting out good juice, their fragrances are solid. Uomo right here came out in 2014. This thing gets tons of solid reviews online. A woody, nutty, warm fragrance with a bit of chocolate and leather. This one's a really interesting combination, perfect for cooler weather. That being said, since 2019, they've been focused on their new line, They're Born in Roma. So both of these, the Intense and the Coral Fantasy, these are good fragrances. They're going to be more geared towards the winter, but they're not going to be the ones I would recommend that you grab from this collection. Now, Valentino Uomo's Born in Rome Yellow Dream, I almost recommend it because it is a solid fragrance, and with a really weird name. What's up with that thing? But no, I'm going to go with their original Born in Rome, the one that came out first in 2019, because this one is just so versatile and is a great, really just a lot of people describe this scent as magical. And I also like recommending this one because it totally flies under the radar to most people. They just walk right past it, and it is a solid pick. Could easily become your go-to signature scent, the only fragrance that you wear. And because it's been out a couple years, if you look around, you can find a great deal out there at discounters. And speaking about one fragrance, let's get to perhaps one of the most prestigious houses on this list, the House of Chanel. So there's one fragrance that this isn't going to surprise a lot of you guys, Bleu de Chanel. This one is the blue fragrance that started the whole craze. You can dress it up, you can dress it down, elegant. You're going to find that there is an Eau de Parfum, which is going to be a little bit smoother. And you're going to find that the Parfum is going to be even smoother than that, and really just has, it's well blended. Which one do I recommend? go with the eau de toilette if you're just getting started. Now, what's the difference between the three fragrances? Well, guys, I'm going to pull that out really quick right here in a chart. And if you want charts like this, guys, go over to Real Men Real Style. That's my website where I've got detailed information where you can learn more about fragrances. But in a nutshell, the strength really isn't any different between, you would think the parfum would last longer, but it's just a bit deeper, richer. I find that the eau de toilette lasts just as long and it's going to be less expensive. This fragrance right here is your go-to Chanel that every man, in my opinion, should own. Now, what about Allure and all the variations, all the flankers? One of the more popular flankers you're going to see out there is going to be the Homme Sport, and then you're going to see the Homme Sport Extreme. This one is going to have a really nice mix of a creamy citrus. This one right here, if you're going to go, I wouldn't go with the original Homme. I like it, the original Allure, but it smells a bit dated. That being said, a dated fragrance, or it's not dated, it's an older fragrance that really smells new, because most guys won't even try a fragrance like this. It really breaks the mold, is going to be Egoist. This fragrance right here, absolutely beautiful, and maybe try Egoist Platinum if you want something that's a little bit friendlier, not as harsh as the original Egoist. That being said, if you're in Sephora and you get the chance, if they happen to have Anateus, get your nose on this one. They don't always have samplers available, but this one is going to be a very strong animalistic fragrance. It's a classic, absolutely beautiful, but don't blind buy a fragrance like this. Now, you may notice I combined some of these houses. I didn't have enough shelves here, but you're going to notice the house of Prada right here. In general, Prada fragrances are going to be light, are going to be fresh, are going to be what many people would describe as powdery. Now, the popular line that's getting pushed right now by Prada is going to be their Luna Rossa line, and you're going to see two fragrances. You've got Ocean, and then you've got the Eau de Parfum. So this means this is the Eau de Toilette. There is a difference between these two, but I wouldn't start off with this one, even though it seems to be that's the one in your face because it's new. I would go back to the original Luna Rossa. Now, the original Luna Rossa is, in my opinion, the epitome of what a Prada fragrance is. It's going to have that lavender note. It's going to be fresh. It's going to be aromatic. This so incredibly versatile. And again, what I like is that they usually have this, they have samplers right there that you can smell. And if you're going to grab your first Prada fragrance, you cannot go wrong with Luna Rossa. That being said, you will see a lot of flankers of Luna Rossa because that original was so popular. The sports are perfectly fine, especially if you live in hotter weather, but I would try to go with the original. That being said, if you happen to just pick up a sport or get it gifted to you, I wouldn't throw out either of them. They're both beautiful. And if you fall in love with that original and you want something new, you want something different, you want something a little bit darker, definitely check out Carbon. A lot of people say it reminds them of, Sauvage by Dior. I'd say, nah, I mean, I see where they're going with that, but this other one here, Black, this one is distinctive enough. Both of them are, but I would go with the Black as a second fragrance. Does that mean I'm crapping on L'Homme? Of course not. These are absolutely beautiful fragrances. The floral is going to be a little bit stronger. A lot of guys, I think the ingredients deck on these absolutely beautiful, amazing fragrances, but I would still go with the Luna Rossa over either one of the Intense or the original Homme. But that being said, if you happen to get your nose on these and you love them, you cannot go wrong with either one of these. Next up, we've got the house of Armani, which I know is different than Emporio Armani, so I'm not really going to get in this because you rarely see these at a Sephora, but I will talk about Code. So Code is a great fragrance, but it's one I'm going to skip over because it's a bit more, just not as many people like it. I think it's, again, a beautiful fragrance. I've got pretty much all the codes. And if you're looking for something heavier, richer, a vanilla, look at their Code Absolute. But let's talk about Acqua di Gio. This fragrance right here is a classic and really started the whole oceanic type of smell with it. So I've got to give him credit for, Alberto Marias was the architect and the guy that put this together and really started a huge trend in men's fragrances. That being said, it is a bit dated. So you're going to walk in and you're going to see Profumo. This right here is a solid. Again, if you were to choose one fragrance that you walk out of the store with, you couldn't really do better than Profumo, especially if you like fresh, clean, light fragrances. It's got a bit of incense with it, so that's what makes it a 4-season fragrance. That being said, if you want something that is going to be more with an oceanic vibe, you want something, hey, I know I'm going to have a darker, richer fragrance with this one, then check out Profondo. Profundo is going to have more of that oceanic smell to it. And the other day I saw, it was a Profundo lights were on sale at Sephora. They're not now, but occasionally, you know, they'll have sales like that on fragrances, which is kind of rare for the fragrance industry, at least in, you know, at Sephora. But I picked it up and I thought it's an amazing light, still aquatic version with a little bit more citrus. That being said, you're going to go in there, you're also going to see Absolute and you're going to see Absolute Instinct. Great fragrances, but they wouldn't be the ones I would recommend that you grab. All that being said, the new Eau de Parfum. This is a solid pick. What I love, it's a brand new fragrance in the last couple of years, so they're pushing it, but it is an improvement, a more modern version of the original. Still, it has all the character and it is just a modern masterpiece. Next up, gents, we've got a classic French house that for some reason flies under the radar. Maybe it's their marketing, Givenchy. And so if you were to choose pie, you get this now, it's sweet, strong, overpowering for me. Not really going to be a fragrance I would choose, but I can see so many guys love this one. You know what would complement it? You go with the Cologne and you go with that EDT version. It's got that nice white bottle, separates it from all the other gentlemen out there. This combination, if you liked both of these, basically this is all you would need. That being said, you're going to find most of Givenchy's fragrances, those that are being pushed at Sephora, are going to be really similar, eerily similar in the way that they look. Yes, this makes sense. This is an EDT. This is an Eau de Parfum, going to come in a darker bottle, but when you get your nose on them, most guys aren't going to be able to see that much of a difference. And those last two were actually easier to tell apart because then you're going to get your nose on Reserve Privé or maybe the Eau de Parfum Boisé, which are both of these great fragrances, but all of a sudden you're going to start getting these confused. And that's my issue with this house. That being said, I was happy with their new Society line. They actually came out with this like logo thing right here on the bottle, makes it so much easier to distinguish. And it actually looked, I thought, pretty darn good. That being said, if I was to recommend one fragrance from this house, look for, in the gentleman line, look for the Intense. This is going to be the Eau de Toilette Intense. And if you can find this one, absolutely beautiful. That being said, the other ones I talked about, those are absolutely beautiful as well. Now, this next house for me is a bit frustrating because I really feel they could do more with their fragrances. They've got a great bottle design, a solid brand, Gucci. So let's talk about the Pour Homme. Solid entry, you know, mass appealing fragrances. Then they come out with the Eau de Parfum, the Parfum. I really don't see that much of a difference in these fragrances, which I get, you know, you would think, okay, well, at least make them a lot stronger. They didn't seem to do that. The longevity doesn't go up that much. And there are some standout Gucci fragrances. Right here, the Pour Homme, this is their Love version, and it was this green. I actually thought this was a really nice, sweet, very easy to wear fragrance. I traveled with it and enjoyed it. I do feel the one fragrance that they did take a chance on, and I think is absolutely beautiful, is their Absolute. This one's very different than the others. And if you want something with more of an earthy note, I would recommend that you grab this one. That being said, Guilty Black. This is one that I think the fragrance community embraced. It actually does have some uniqueness to it. It's better than I think the original. So if you would go with Guilty Black, or if you want something with a little bit more, you know, push to it, go with the Absolute. And not to confuse you, you're also going to see this square-like bottle out there. This is going to be the Gucci Pour Homme. I think it's the Gucci. Somebody correct me down in the comments. You're also going to see the Cologne. The Cologne is fine, but I already felt the fragrances weren't that strong, so you could skip on this one. And this one, it doesn't really bring anything to the table either. So what video to watch next? How to make your fragrance last longer. I get it. You want that weak fragrance to last all day. Well, guys, I got you covered in this video where I give you the secrets to make even a weak fragrance last all day. Boom, right here.